let's talk about how to turn your donors into supporters. Hopefully you saw my training already about why your donors aren't who you think they are, and you've learned a little bit about the difference between a donor who just gave once and a donor who's committed to helping you in the long haul. So here's what I want you to think about, right? We're actually building a process. We're taking these people who are our test donors, and we want to convert them. Converts, they use marketers, a word marketers use a lot, into these supporter donors, right? And I kind of like to follow this type of framework whenever I'm talking about a relationship. So we want to have a strong start. And the strong start to the relationship is what solidifies that relationship from a test or a one-off introduction to a real supporter. And then, if we let our relationships just kind of languish and ignore them, they're not going to stay there. So we really need to nurture them and build them over time. And then we want to kind of make sure we have a place for people who have fallen out to go, and we just don't ignore them. So I call that a strong finish. And I've got this arrow here because hopefully the strong finish means not a strong finish at all and kind of a renewal of the relationship. But if it does mean that they are leaving you as a supporter, as a donor, that you have the opportunity to end that relationship well, and there's a lot of quality information and experience to be had as you end that relationship. So let's talk about this first moment. I like to call this is that strong start. It's we're going to love on the new donor so that they take action, not just to give that one-time gift, but so that they really become a supporter donor. So what do we have here? There's a few things I want you to be aware of. We've got what we're going to get from the donor, what we're going to give to the donor, and any kind of internal stuff, right? So you're going to want to write this out actually as a process for your organization. So when it comes to what you want to get from your donor, of course, you're going to get that donation, right? So that's the first gift, but I also want it to include the second gift, right? So your donor, that's your clue that they're on their way to becoming a supporter, is when they give again. And I actually just read a research study that shows they really need to make that second gift within 8 weeks. And the closer they make the second gift to the first gift, the better, really. So just because they just gave, remember, that's a test donation. Don't think you shouldn't ask them for their next gift because you actually do want to prove to them that you're worthy and make that second ask very soon. But there's something else I want you to get from that donor. I want you to capture what their vision is, because one of the keys to solidifying this relationship is aligning your vision with their vision, or aligning their vision with your vision, because vision is what really gets people connected and committed to supporting your organization. So you could do this with a scheduled call. That's one way you could do it. And certainly for larger gifts, you absolutely should. Or if your list is small, call as many people as you can, have that one-on-one conversation. If your list is big, but you have a lot of staff members, divvy up the work. So these are two ways that you might get their vision a bit. You want to get their feedback around what their hopes and dreams are for your impact, as well as their gift. Now, what should you give to them? And I've got a big list here, and I've broken it into 3 categories. So you're going to want to give them information on your impact, right? So they kind of had an inkling when they made that first donation. And by the way, all this stuff you're going to give to them is probably what's going to secure that second gift. So now you want to really show them the amazing impact that your organization makes. So this could be if you have brochures or some sort of information packet, or maybe you have a video series something like that. You want to go in to more in-depth information, not about the nuts and bolts of what you do, but the results that your organization gets. So this is a great time to share success stories about outcomes and before and after stories if you serve people, about those people, or if you serve the environment, about the environment. The second category of things I want you to give them is more information on the issues, right? The issues that you are solving. And this could be information that you've created or information that's just available. So maybe there's a book that really has inspired many people at your organization. Send them a copy. Maybe there's a TED Talk that does that. Send them a link to the TED Talk. Or maybe you've created something that is a similar type of resource about the issues. Maybe you work with people who have depression and you've created a guide for people who have depression. And one question is, can this process work with sponsors or galas? So people are people are people. So it can absolutely work with sponsors. There's some specific things you need to know about why, if we're talking about a corporate sponsor, why they would want to sponsor with you. And galas are one step in the experience of a person. So galas are different because they're a thing, they're an event, they're not a person. So I really want you to think, when you think about fundraising, think about people first. And if your gala is happening, where does that fall in the journey that that people are going through with you? You want to be careful because your donors, remember what they want. They are mission driven just like you, and they want to make the same impact on the world that you want to make, right? So that's why they become long-term investors. So they use their money to get the impact, and you use your services. If you're selling them a gala, you're not really giving them what you want, what they want, or you are you're attracting the wrong kind of people. But on the next slide, I'm actually going to show you where galas or kind of social events might actually fit in. So let's talk about the third type of thing you want to give your donor. You want to welcome them to a community. You want them to feel like they just joined your effort, and it's big, and there's other people involved, and there's energy, whatever it is, the natural feeling of being part of your nonprofit, you want to introduce them to that. So this might be some sort of interaction with a client. It could be an interaction with a staff member. And by all means, this call can be this interaction with the staff member. You can absolutely do two things, accomplish two things with one activity. I'm a big fan of doing that. Or it could be with a volunteer, or even another donor. If you have a donor who's been supporting you for a long time and who's a big fan, or maybe this volunteer donor is also a board member, they can have a call with them. The purpose is to welcome them in to this huge impact they're about to help make by being a supporter of your nonprofit. And then the third thing, this is really dependent on how things are set up at your organization, but you might do things like, do you have to remember to update your CRM? Do you need to add them to some sort of special email list? And are you monitoring for that second gift? So you know that, once they've given that second gift, let's move them into the supporter zone instead of just the tester donor zone. So these are the three things you want to plan out for your donors. And this, this action about get from your donor, right? This can be in order to get them to give that first and second gift, or maybe they just gave this first gift kind of through some sort of online campaign, and now you've really got to do all this, get the second gift, and move them on. So this is a lot here. Take a screenshot if you want. Otherwise, this will be in the recording. Let's take a look at how you nurture the relationship. So let's talk about nurturing the relationship. And there's a question about how this could work for performing arts resources. Again, it really depends on what type of performing arts organization you are, but you can absolutely provide past performances that you've done, things like that. But also, if you're performing arts, you're going to have a lot to do in here as well. So following, just like on the previous slide about what to do for new donors, we need to do two things for get from our existing donors. We need to get them continually giving, right? So maybe they're doing monthly giving, that's great. Or maybe there's some other periodic time frame, like there's someone who gives every year or quarterly. Ideally, monthly giving is so effective, and the total amount of money that you'll receive is usually higher. So try to get people subscribed, right? In my head, I call it subscription giving. But many people call it monthly giving. So try to get them involved with monthly giving, and then also remember for periodic gifts. And they're not going to give unless they're subscribed, unless you ask them. So you do have to plan those asks in. So if they're not doing monthly giving, go ahead and schedule your asks into your calendar so you get them out there. And don't forget about vision. If you want them to stay committed, you have to continually realign their vision with your vision. And the best way to do this is with getting them to talk to you. If your donors stop talking to you at all or giving you some sort of two-way interaction, you're probably in trouble. So keep creating opportunities, even if it's as simple as them to respond to a periodic survey or give their input. That is great. And having periodic calls, whether it's monthly or quarterly, you want to get as many donors on the phone as possible. Now, in the what do you give to the donor category, we have the same types of categories again. Except they're impact updates and issues updates, right? So I've kind of lumped these two together because these are going to kind of come probably at the same time. You might have an evergreen email nurture series, meaning emails that once they become a supporter donor, there's like maybe a series of emails where they are getting more information about what you do, even deeper or more detailed stories about what you've done. So that could be evergreen, meaning it's one email sequence, you wrote it once, it works whenever, and each new donor comes in and starts getting that email series dripped out over a period of time. And then your updates, right? You're going to send email updates, or you could send a physical mailing letter, a newsletter. That's totally fine. If you're going email, it still works best to not make it like a fancy newsletter. I think a letter from the executive director or something like that works a lot better. And what else do they need? They need to continue belonging, right? So we welcomed them to the community when we really loved on them in the beginning of the relationship, but now we have to provide some semblance of community that they are welcome to join. So you could do fireside chats, and what I like about these is you can have kind of this periodic call and the fireside chat, those that can be double duty, that can be the same activity, and you can speak with groups of donors at the same time, get their feedback, and they can get to know each other. Or you can have social events, right? So if you think about your galas, which we talked about, your galas often, you might have heard that things like porch parties and small dinner gatherings are more effective than galas in as far as, the cost to raise $1. And so I would transition, take your galas and think about how much are they introducing you to new donors and how much are they serving the place of being that kind of event that provides community and belonging for your donors. I think a lot of people don't want to give up their galas because they are serving this purpose, and they have this sense that if they get rid of that, that their donors are going to be unhappy. But I think if you take this new lens on your galas, you will realize that there are ways you can organize them that probably cost you a lot less and mean a lot more to your donors. And then, of course, we have to make sure we've written down just so we don't forget, right? If you forget to do some of these things, they won't happen. And while we can automate a lot of things, usually there's some manual step involved, right? So do you need to update your CRM? Do you need to enroll them in that evergreen series? Do you have to trigger it in some way? Do you need to monitor their giving, right? So you know if they've stopped being a supporter. Here's for only those advanced marketers. If you're not an advanced person, I want you to get tech overwhelm and just plug your ears for a second. But you can take your list. If you have a big list of donors, you can take the whole list of people who are the supporters, the best kind, and you can upload that list. If you're doing Facebook advertising to Facebook, make a lookalike audience and have Facebook help you find new donors who are most like your best donors. Again, that's only for the advanced folks, and you need to schedule events or invites. Now, there's one new category in the middle here, and that is, I'm calling the anti-indifference category. So I'll never forget, I read this, it was regular marketing, it was a research article, and the research study was, what is the #1 reason why people switch from one brand to another? Why do you switch from Gain to 7th generation or Gain to Tide, two things that are closely related, right? And the #1 reason why people switched was indifference. So we want to make sure, as we're supporting, nurturing this supportive relationship, that we have the anti-indifference activities, right? And these are really simple. I like to lump giving them swag periodically. This doesn't have to be expensive: stickers, bandanas, pens, just anything to remind them that you're there. I once did chapsticks. That was fun, inexpensive, and everybody carries many people carry chapsticks. I won't say everybody. Wishing them happy birthday in an email, or, you know, any sort of holiday or celebration thing. These all play a really important role of anti-indifference. You could also argue that swag does double duty and creates a sense of belonging as well. If you really have that kind of community, people might feel really proud and like they belong to don one of your bumper stickers on their car or wear your shirt or hat out in public. So this one absolutely does double duty. So let's talk about what happens if the relationship ends. First of all, do you know if the relationship is ending? So I want you to define if the donor hasn't given. So if they're a monthly donor who stops giving monthly, that's this. If they're an annual donor who doesn't give their annual donation, that's this. So you may have a couple triggers here, but really define it and then just like put away in your processes and systems to check for it. And here's what I want you to do is, if this trigger goes off, somebody didn't give as we expected, ask them if they've decided to stop giving. Don't say, oh, well, too bad for us, they're not giving anymore. Do not let them go without asking them if that's what they're doing. Now, they're basically either going to say, no, I don't mean to stop giving. Maybe they just didn't know that their credit card had expired, or they forgot. Or maybe they're going to say yes, and that's okay, and we can end the relationship in a positive way. So if they're no, I didn't mean to stop giving, make the plan to re-engage them. Could be as simple as updating their credit card, could be as complicated as kind of going back to the beginning of the relationship where you love on them and bring them back into the fold. Or if the answer is yes, I highly encourage you to do an exit interview or an exit survey of some kind. In some way, you need to find out why, right? That's super valuable to you. Now, another thing you can do to potentially hope that they come back, but also to leave them feeling really good about what they did, because they still could come back in the future, or you certainly don't want them bad mouthing you out there, is you could send them a lifetime impact summary. Just kind of jot up, it doesn't have to be super fancy, a report of, what they've given or the impact they've helped you make over the years or months or however long it's been. And this might actually turn them back into donors, or if not, it will at least help them leave in a fine, good feeling way. So you haven't burned any bridges. Thank them, right? They're ending. Maybe they feel bad about it, but thank them. Leave that relationship on a high note. And then finally, the details. Update your CRM and other lists. You don't want to have some sort of misstep as though you've acted like they're already a donor. If they said they're definitely going, don't keep sending them all the special invites maybe to the donor things if they've clearly expressed that they don't want it. So those are some real specifics to think about right about that new donor, that first time donor who just gave to you or maybe is about to give to you, and how to make sure that's not just a test donation, or that when they give a test donation that you pass the test and you convert those people into lifetime supporters.